Hello everyone. Welcome back to Sustainable Living with Shilpa Reddy, powered by Planet Green's Farm Natura, a new beginning to your life. Today, on yet another episode of Kankatala Q&A with Shilpa, I will be addressing a few questions that we have received from you all in the past few weeks. Following the tradition, today I am wearing a Kanchipuram cotton sari. Times have changed and so the tastes, but the love for cotton has not. The temple town shared the pride of their Kanchi silks with Kanchi cotton to boast on their distinguished art of weaving. Kankatala brings you the Kanchi cotton, the elite choice for summer wear from the best of the artisans of the industry. The Kanchipuram cotton saris are yet another range of fabric that is made to fill the gap for the people who like the opulence, grace of the Kanchipuram but want an alternative for silk. The Kanchi cotton sari is also economical, which gives comfort and same Kanchi artistic elegance. The Kanchi cotton saris are purely influenced by the designs and stature of the temples. In spite of being regular formal wear sari, the Kanchi cotton has refined the avenues of cotton sari growth. This Kanchipuram cotton sari is a shade of a dark blue, is adorned in orange silk checks body with peacocks in the floral vines brocade, orange threaded series next to white threaded floral motif series lends a beautiful formal finish. Bamboo toothbrushes can be just as good for your teeth as plastic toothbrushes. You should replace your toothbrush every 3 to 4 months or if there is visible damage to the bristles. Replacing your old toothbrush with a new one will help you keep teeth clean. Other reasons why people are making the switch to this new eco-friendly toothbrushes include: bamboo is antimicrobial, so there is no fear of harmful bacteria that will start to grow and spread on the handle of your toothbrush. Biodegradable natural bamboo handles also encourage the growth of mold quickly in comparison to plastic materials. This means making sure that the toothbrush has time to dry out between each use. Bamboo toothbrushes require a bit more care than a regular toothbrush. Bamboo toothbrushes should always be left flat on the surface for them to dry. Keeping the toothbrushes upright will not help it to dry out completely. Basically, the most important step is preventing moistness and molds is to dry the bristles and handle with a towel. It's as simple as that, because if you let your bamboo toothbrush soak for a long time in water, it will darken over the frequent use. Every single year, 1.5 billion toothpaste tubes end up in landfills, and the plastic in those tubes needs 500 years to degrade. That means brushing your teeth every day contributes to plastic in landfills and in the oceans in a big way. The truth is, toothpaste tubes take an estimate of 500 years to decompose because they are made to last. Most toothpaste tubes are made from plastic and aluminium, making it impossible to reduce your environmental footprint. It may not be what your dentist will tell you, but what's clean for your teeth isn't always clean for the environment. A lot of conventional oral care products contain ingredients that can cause potential harm to the planet. In order for toothpaste to be more environmentally friendly, it must use plastic-free packaging and contain ingredients that are not harmful to the planet. Some toothpastes are considered environmentally friendly for these very reasons. Using toothpaste tablets is a great idea to avoid environmental waste, or you can go back to our traditional tooth powders too. Drip irrigation is a type of micro irrigation system that has the potential to save water and nutrients by allowing water to drip slowly to the roots of the plants, either from above the soil surface or buried below the surface. The goal is to place water directly into the root zone and minimize evaporation. Drip irrigation systems distribute water throughout the network of valves, pipes, tubing and emitters. Depending on how well designed, installed, maintained and operated it is, a drip irrigation system can be more efficient than other types of irrigation systems such as surface irrigation or sprinkler irrigation. Water use is automatically streamlined through the process of drip irrigation. Fertigation can easily be included with minimal waste of fertilizers. Moisture within the root zone can be maintained at a field capacity. Soil erosion is lessened. The drip method significantly saves the human labor involved in crop production activities. On an average, a human labor days used for weeding banana were 17 labor days per hectare under drip method and 60 labor days per hectare under flood method of irrigation. Maximum irrigation water is utilized by plants in drip irrigation system. Different vegetative parts of the plants such as leaf, stem, twig, etc. can come in direct contact with water through drip irrigation, which is not possibly by flood or other irrigation. Leaching loss is totally absent here. Ultimately, crop production is increased optimistically. Accelerated soil erosion is a common and environmentally destructive consequence of development, especially in the mountain regions. Soil erosion is a special concern in agricultural lands, but agriculture is only one of the many development activities that greatly accelerates soil erosion process. In mountain regions, accelerated soil erosion is a common and environmentally destructive consequence of the development. Soil erosion has been extensively studied by agricultural researchers, and reducing soil erosion is widely recognized as a key to sustainable agriculture. Soil loss lowers crop production, changes on and off-site hydrology, and creates off-site deposits that may be damaging. There are always strong links between measure of soil conservation and measures for water conservation, and this applies equally in semi-arid areas. Many measures are directed primarily to one or the other, but most contain an element of both. Reduction of surface runoff by structures or by change in land management will also help to reduce erosion. Similarly, reducing erosion will usually involve preventing splash erosion or formation of crusts or breakdown of the structure, all of which will increase infiltration and so help the water conservation. Aquaponics reduces erosion by eliminating the need to turn or plow the soil. The back-breaking work of turning soil and pulling weeds is gone, reducing the cost compared to the conventional agricultural methods. Imagine gardening with your plants at waist height. Now that is smart. Reduce pollution and more recycling. The advantages of aquaponic farming are: there is a significant reduction in the usage of water for this mode of farming, and the growth of the plant is significantly faster. Aquaponic grown vegetables are bigger and nutritious. There is no need to use artificial fertilizers. You do not have to throw away the fish water, and it is easy to set up an aquaponics. The produce is organic and has lesser risk of damage from pests. In aquaponics, the plant roots are watered at least once an hour in most systems and have constant access to high levels of nitrates that are in the water. On the other hand, it is expensive to set up a hydroponic farm. You will also need large greenhouses. Immense technical knowledge about aquaponics is very crucial before you start the farm, and aquaponic farms needs electricity input. You can grow pretty much anything in the aquaponic system, from fruit trees to root crops, though depending on the type of growing medium. Potatoes and carrots may grow in some weird shapes. Most people focus on growing leafy vegetables. This question should be addressed in multiple ways. In case your plants are completely indoor friendly and do not need any sunlight or water, they will easily survive for 15 days. However, On the other hand, there are some plants which need little warmth or sunlight every day, even when considered to be indoor plants. In such case, there will be more evaporation of water moist in the soil and the plant's stem cells. In such case, the plants will need water every day or on alternative days. For plants like these, long travel plans will of course affect. When you look at self-watering plants with artificial warm lights enabled in few homes, this system could help you travel for longer durations by not worrying about your plants at home. Sago palm, money plant, spider plant, snake plant, orchids, devil's backbone are few varieties that need low maintenance and can survive without frequent watering or sunlight. For plants like these, you are free to travel for even a month or so. On the other hand, elephant ear, zebra plant, Boston fern, etc. will need frequent watering and sunlight. If you have plants like these at home, they will die if not watered for 15 days during your travel. Beginners often start by growing one type of seed such as broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, mustard, chia, sunflower or buckwheat. These are the easiest to grow variety among the microgreens. In a single container, you can easily grow different seeds in several containers and mix your microgreens after harvesting. Microgreens are very easy to grow. You can grow them outside in a garden bed or containers inside on a sunny windowsill. If you're planting microgreens in a garden bed, loosen the soil and rake it smooth. Scatter your seeds, mix so that the seeds are about 1/8 to 1/4 inch apart. While not all types of microgreens regrow after harvesting, many do and actually can be cut several times. Pea shoots tend to regrow after harvesting. You can remove the roots and replant microgreen seeds or even dump the tray and start over again. Microgreens are very easy to grow, and when established in breathable grow bags using the coco peat and probiotics, the microgreens grow to the fullest quality and are ready to consume in 1 to 3 weeks. Most of the times, microgreen crops fail due to excessive watering or unnecessary attention. Yes, you heard it right. These crops need very minimal water and not very direct sunlight for them to grow. Having them in your balcony garden with minimal exposure to sunlight and basic water sprinkling instead of pouring will keep the crop intact. Some people are faced with a dilemma when planning their vegetable garden. Should they plant their garden in the ground or in raised beds or even in pots? Each of these choices has advantages and disadvantages. If you're blessed with a large, full sun garden plot that has rich, well-drained soil, planting directly in the ground may be the easiest way to start your garden. However, if your garden site has compacted clay or very sandy or rocky soil, you can spend the time and effort to improve it. Add a lot of organic material, but you may want to consider a different option, raised beds. Creating a raised planting bed involves a considerable amount of work at the beginning. Once it's completed, the ongoing work each season is minimized. You are making your own custom planting medium and along with it, an optimal growing environment for plants' roots. If you enclose your raised beds with wooden sides, and a good choice for doing that are cider boards at least 8 inches wide, it will be easier to keep your plot irrigated. Of course, at all times, garden plantation is the best way as there is natural nutrient capacity in the soil. Also, it is easier to add more nutrients to the ground level soil. A little more comfortable option is the raised beds. If you do not have the space and capacity to maintain ground plantation or raised bed plantation, then you can choose to proceed with that of pot plantation. The term mulch and compost are often used interchangeably, and there is some confusion about what each is and the difference between the two. Many are confused about when and where to use them. What is mulch? Mulch can be any matter, organic or inorganic, that you put on top of your soil. Materials used for mulch include everything from crushed rock and plastic sheeting to wooden chips, discarded newspapers, pine straw, grass clippings, leaves and straw. Mulch can be laid down on top of compost or topsoil 1 to 2 inches deep, usually in the late fall and early spring. Mulch can help you cut down on your gardening chores by helping suppress the weeds and holds moisture in the soil. What is compost? Compost is the biologically active material that results from decomposition of organic matter under controlled circumstances. Many people call a lot of different things compost, and so there are a lot of differences in what people understand as compost. To make compost, you must have the correct ratio of carbon to nitrogen, which is about 30:1. The materials must be made into a pile and must maintain 50% moisture. The pile should be turned often to add oxygen to the center of the pile so that the microorganisms can breathe and break down the feedstock materials. A compost pile should reach an inside temperature between 140 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and this temperature should be maintained for at least 3 weeks. Hope you guys found this episode informative. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to my channel. Do not miss any updates. See you all next week. Signing off, Shilpa Reddy.